Hey y'all, welcome back to Ray of All Trades. This is probably the smallest zero turn I have ever worked on. I'm sure there's probably smaller ones, but this is pretty small. RZ30. So it's a 30-inch deck on this thing. One blade. Just one. Got a Briggs 16.5 horsepower motor. Motor seems to be in pretty decent shape. Got a pretty good exhaust leak. I don't know if you guys heard it when it was coming in. It was actually really loud, and it was basically the exhaust that was doing it. Fuel filter's fairly new, installed the right direction. Seemed to crank up okay. It had been sitting for a while. Tires had held up. Not in bad condition. The owner was tired of it, and oh, check out that big old heavy weight. The owner was tired of it and said, you know what, I don't want to deal with selling this thing on one of those community web pages. And he said, if you'll take this thing, he'd be much obliged. So we agreed on a pretty good amount, what I thought was fair, considering I might be dealing with a motor problem. And the only reason I say there might be a motor problem was the motor was really loud. It was making a knocking noise, and he claimed it was hard to start. I don't know, hard to start. He said it started tough. I don't really know what he means by that, but when I first heard it fire up, I kind of got the gist of what he was talking about. Makes a lot of banging and carrying on when it first fires up. He maintained this thing. He did pretty good. He said he had changed out the head gasket at one point in time. He thought maybe that something else had gone catastrophically wrong. But what I'm noticing, loud noise, probably this exhaust. I see a crack right there. I see a bunch of exhaust blow-by coming out of there. Kind of looks like the seam, you know, because the black is coming that direction too, as well as that direction. So that gasket isn't holding on very well. I noticed that the bolt for the exhaust is hanging out, so that'll make it loud. But the concern was really the banging noise when it first fired up. I've showed you guys this one time before. Pretty common problem. I'll try to demonstrate. It's common on these motors. See how the motor is just loose? There's 4 bolts that hold that motor down, and because it's a single cylinder motor, there's lots of single cylinder motors out there, don't get spun up on that part, but because it's a single cylinder motor and it's 16 horsepower, I've seen them all the way up to like 21, 22 horsepower, there's a whole lot of compression and power stroke that's going on, and then the counterbalance has to carry the rest of the motor around for the power and intake stroke, right? So after the power stroke, then you have your exhaust stroke. So the power stroke gave it all of its inertia, right? That's the kick in the pants to make it move, the power stroke, and then it carries through the exhaust stroke. So remember, it's losing power as it's carrying through the exhaust stroke because the power stroke already took place. It pushes all the exhaust out. Then it carries another stroke down and pulls all of that fresh fuel back in, right? So it's still losing power this entire time. Then it has to compress all that. So now it's actually fighting an uphill battle from that same inertia to compress that. Then it finally gets another explosion that gives it another power stroke. So think about it. You had your power stroke that was a really good force downhill, right? Then it has to carry up through the exhaust stroke, then back down through the intake stroke, then up through a compression stroke, which is a pretty steep incline because it's compressing something, then finally another ignition to push it back down again hard. So you can imagine there's a whole lot of inertia that has to occur to make this thing move. That causes that motor to shake a lot because it's hard, soft, hard, soft, hard, soft. It's just it's a lot of inertia. So I've seen it pretty regularly on these things. And this being loose like that, when it first fires up, it will shake enough to make it sound like a rod knock. And like I said, I've seen it more than enough times to know it's a problem. So whenever you find a single cylinder, the first thing you should do is grab the motor, give it a quick tug like that, and see if it's loose, because it just gets worse and worse over time. Usually at like an idle or first startup, things like that, it will shake the most, and it'll sound like a rod knock. You know, the motor will be making all kinds of noise. Anyway, so let's tighten that up. He also said that the emergency brake is not working, and it needs to be in that position to start, and you can see that there's nothing holding it to make it stay up. So I imagine that there's some dogs that are probably keeping it from engaging. So sometimes it could be a spring just, you know, holding the dogs out of place so it can't catch. So we'll check into that as well. I've already got somebody who wants this thing, which is fantastic news for me. I just need to get it quieted down, get it tightened up. Maybe a little bit of welding if, looks like this muffler does have a crack in it, so we're gonna have to weld that as well. And then we'll check it over. So come along, let's check this thing out. Get the tire off of here so we can see what's going on. I chose to go with the one that's on the emergency brake so I can possibly hit 2 birds with 1 stone. So this is what I was talking about. This is your emergency brake that's going to engage that. So what's occurring here? So that part engages. So the handle is trying to fall forward. So is this just a spring that needs to be tightened up to hold it back? Because that's what was occurring. Let me see, we've got some stuff right here, possibly stopping it. So we'll check into that. But that emergency brake does work. It does engage. Right? It's just this little arm. And now we have access to, well, I say we have access. Look how tight that's going to be to get up in there. You know, I hate to say it, but it looks like we have to drop the rear drives down to get to the bolts. So looking up from the back side, this side over here, I can get my hand to the bolt and it is loose. This side over here is blocked by the drive. There's no way to, even if I could get a wrench into it, the bolt's missing and there's no way for me to get to it. I'm pretty convinced I'm gonna have to pull this spring right here to release the belt for the hydros. Release that spring to release that pulley so that the hydro belts can come loose. Then I plan on supporting the rear end, right? Taking out these 2 bolts on each side, and then the hydro itself is fastened right up here in the back. These 2 bolts right here, if y'all can see them. So I need to take all of those out, and then once I do that, I think I can lower the rear end far enough so that I can get to those bolts. That's not common. Usually you can stick a wrench in there and get to them, but there's not enough space for me to be able to put that bolt in. I mean, it just is missing. So, and then the space for it is about that big. So there's no way for me to get a bolt in, and it needs to come from the bottom up because the block is what's threaded. I might be able to stick a bolt through the top and stick a nut on it, but I can't get to this one. I can't really get to them to tighten them up. Let's try to get this spring off of here. I don't see any other way of doing this. We'll find out here as soon as I get it off of here, if there is another way. Muffler's loose. I mean, y'all saw the exhaust, but it's kind of funny. It's back here rattling around. Got the spring out for the belt. All right, now that transmission belt is loose, let me get out these 6 bolts I just talked about, here, 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 and here, and see if we can start lowering this thing down. That one. They really sandwiched this thing in here. Serious engineering going on. There's a washer on that one. Looks like the washer might be on. Yeah, the washer's on the bottom side. All right, is that enough to lower this thing a little bit? Okay, what's hanging up? So I need a little bit more space. Let's try taking off these pull arms here, the release arms. So let's take out that hairpin. Pull this arm out. Do the same thing on the other side. Okay. Did that give me enough space? Looks like if I had taken off this frame first, I might have had more room. But right now, I have what I have. Let me get something up in here, tighten up these 4 bolts. Let me show you what it looks like. So I got 1 bolt right here, 1 on the other corner over there. I don't know how else to describe it. I'm trying, y'all. Getting the camera angle inside there is hard. So anyway, 9/16 socket on a swivel is what I needed. So let me get those tightened up. I'll grab all 4 of them, all 4 of these corners, and I'll bring you guys back because you're not gonna be able to see anything other than just me, you know, grunting and probably saying bad words. So I'll be right back. All right, let's get it put back up in place, or at least try to without damaging anything. Let's get all these started. I'll catch the other side. And 1 more right here. I'll take a quick peek at the belt, make sure it's not pinched or something like that. Well, the belt's right around the pulley, nothing shifted. Let me just go ahead and tighten it up. I was just scared that the belt would have gone around like a fan or something like that, and then I tightened it up and it smashed it. You know, things like that. Is this fast enough for those? Nope. Sometimes you can put a impact on something, it'll spin fast enough that you don't have to hold the nut on the other side and it'll tighten. Parts of this job were kind of cool because everything was lightweight and I could manhandle it real easy. And then other parts of it are, because it's so small, I can't get my fingers in there. And the larger machines are easier to work on. Just gonna have to go by feel. Okay. All right, y'all, that's what it's supposed to look like when it's done. So the arm's on there, the hairpin's back in place. Let me go do the other side. All right, y'all, I've been studying this thing, trying to figure out this parking brake. So the parking brake goes up. There's no groove to hold it in place. There's also no significant play that a groove would help. Like if you tried to push it over to push it down, that doesn't really help. This arm picks up on this arm right here. So all it does is hold that up. It pivots on that bolt right there. And I'm wondering if maybe that just needs to be snugged up. When you engage that arm, so this right now is in the up position for the arm. That's the down position. Just as I start moving it, you can see how fast it engages. I've been looking for a spring, you know what I mean? Like a spring that would overcome it and hold it in the back position like that. And then, you know, you overcome the spring and push it down. I'm not seeing a spring anywhere. I can't really put a spring on this because it's not really going to hold anything, you know. If I tried to hold back, like let's just say there was a spring right there, I could actually move that handle back like that and I can force it to overcome a spring right there. But there's nothing stopping, you know, if I'm holding this up here, I actually have the ability of releasing it to the point where it's just gonna fall forward and not engage that emergency brake. I think that I literally just need to tighten up the nut on this side and give this a little bit more tension. I think if I gave it just a little bit more, it might work. You can see that this is locked in place, and when that engages, it's definitely going to hold it. Well, I say that, but oh yeah, that's the problem right there. So that side of there is in good shape. This side is not. Okay, we'll tighten that up so that the arm has friction, and then I'll pull this off and show you what I think is going on. All right, let's just give this a little bit more tension. Yeah, that'll hold. The other side has really good teeth on this. Let me show you what this side looks like. Okay. So some Loctite on that, but look at the teeth. So you see how they're all ground down? We might be able to get a little bit more teeth in there if I grind in just a little bit more. Probably going to have to adjust this to make it fit further in. But what do y'all think? I think if I just grind some new teeth into this thing, make them a little bit deeper, that would give me enough space. As I'm trying to mirror or mimic that. You make that fit. Since it's on an angle, it's going to be tough to match up, but I'm just thinking if I had some teeth there, it would just grab. Because right now, there's really nothing for it to grab. Yeah, let me put this on the bench. I'm just going to try to dig some teeth into this thing and see if I can make something work with that. So give me just a minute. Let me see what I can come up with. All right, not perfect by any means, but I used a little triangle file, and that's the side that was not touched, right? So that's the side that you saw had teeth earlier. And then that's the side that I just finished grinding down. And so I'll show you the side that I ground down so you can see. Looks like it'll hold in there pretty well. Got a decent bite. So let's put that back on and see. The guy that wants this thing said he didn't even care if the emergency brake worked because he's on flat ground. But if you guys are in a similar situation, you might be able to use this. I'm not going to call it a trick. I'll call it a hack more than anything else. There was Loctite on this thing, so we're going to put a little bit more. Okay, let's see. I think I'm probably going to have to adjust the brake on this side as well. All right, does it engage? No, she needs to come up just a little bit more, I think. Well, maybe not. Hold on. Yeah, she needs just a little bit more. There is a nut right here on that arm, 1/2-inch bolt that has a spring behind it that gives it tension. And I think what we need to do is move that nut back so that it has a little bit further travel that it can go, which is going to weaken up that spring a little bit, but we're going to give it a try anyway. Let's see, let's put the wrench on there, move it back into place. And we're just loosening this up. Okay. That should allow us to get this off of here. Can see that right now it's not engaged, which is the biggest trick, right? There we go. And then when I engage that, yeah, she digs in a lot further. Yeah, I think that'll work. We still need to put this spring back in place. So let's get it fished up into here. Now we're going to try to use an old brake spring tool, and what you do is you put that on what you're trying to anchor to, and you roll the spring into place. So this spring right here goes back through that hole. I just knocked it out, and this tool should go through that spring, grab the bolt that you're trying to anchor to, let's try again. Kind of tough because there's a washer on there as well. Get it? Looks like I put it on the wrong side of that washer. There we go. All right. Finally got it. Now we're going to work on that. Let's take it off and see what we're working with. So, exhaust gasket was pretty bad shape. Yep, we got a crack right there. We got a crack right there. And looks like the seam is also messed up. Tell you what, I'm gonna go set this in the vise. Basically, I'm gonna set on an edge, and I'm gonna take a punch and hammer that seam down into place, you know what I mean? So just like set it on an edge and hammer that down to tighten up that seam. And then I think we might, I don't know about welding. I think I might break out the oxyacetylene and do a little bit of either brazing or light duty welding. I don't want to burn through this thing. Y'all ignore the clutter. I wasn't planning on shooting over in this area. Basically, I'm just setting the muffler on the edge, and taking a really dull chisel. And just going around the seam and flattening it back out again. I know it's kind of boring. I just wanted to show you all what I was talking about. So I've got a really sharp edge on the vise, and I'm just taking a blunt object and just tightening up that seam. So I'll bring you back. Alright, so I fixed the cracks on the welds. Then I realized that it was too misshapen. I tried to shape it out. I couldn't get it to lay flat. So what I ended up doing is I ran a bead all the way around this thing, which made it look really ugly. Then I put it on a belt sander and till I got a really flat surface. So it doesn't look that great, but right now it's flat, fully welded up, and functional. Let's put this thing back together. Also made 2 brand new gaskets. Made, not bought, so they're probably not going to fit that great. Let's see. See if they'll thread on. A little bit of a bow to them. They should flatten out. What I did too was try to make up space. I don't have the wheels on it yet, but let's go ahead and fire it up and see if it sounds any better. Emergency brakes on. Move it up to the choke position. I still hear a little bit coming right out of here. There you go. So she still leaked. So I grabbed a big old galvanized washer and I cut it into a flange. I made sure that it bolted up on there. So what we're going to do, first off, grind the galvanized off of here so I don't poison myself. And then we're going to weld this directly to that can so I have a really flat surface. So let me get this ground down, I'll get it welded up, bring you back, and we will try to bolt this thing on. Alright y'all, while I'm at it, because I added a flange to this thing, I'm having to turn down the bolts, so I'm just putting them on the lathe and just cutting just a little bit of a shoulder off of there. So I'll be right back. Made my flange, just ran a oxyacetylene bead around it. I'm not a welder. I'll say that every time. I'm not a welder. Because I lost some distance there, I'm not going to double gasket this thing. I was just trying to, the double gasket was only to try to seal up a little extra, and that didn't work. A lot of effort to go keep from buying a muffler, huh? Let's see, got that one started. So before, I was getting a whole lot of air coming out of here. Let's see what it looks like and feels like and sounds like now. There is a very faint exhaust leak right there. It has to be that flange, the existing flange, that super thick piece of metal. There has to be a burn spot there or something. I know one way to fix it. We can just get out the MIG welder and just MIG a spot. And I think we might do that. Obviously it's going to make it really difficult for the next time it comes off, but alright. Cut out the MIG welder and just welded it up. Let's see what it sounds like now. Yep, we got it that time. I hate not doing it the right way, but I was trying to save having to buy a muffler for this thing. Alright, let's get the shoes back on. The blade's actually really sharp. Let's cut that twine off of there, but yeah, the blades are actually pretty sharp already. Okay, got that out of there. Let me throw a little bit of grease in here and in here on both sides. I think we might have to take it for a spin. Yeah, I think we'll call that one a win. Smallest zero turn I've ever worked on. Hope y'all got something out of the video. Really appreciate you hanging out. I'll catch you guys on the next one.